to music to teach the whole child, the body, heart, and
to learn new skills and to build new acumen.
As the year goes on, I get closer and closer. We can always touch. It's not.
When you get that, then you get a lot more excited about being around children.
Normal, in a sense, with all of the changes.
Or how you can transform your own business.
On developing the whole child, socially, emotionally.
Traditional route of teaching young people
how to set boundaries, because this little victim here needs to know how.
Very well. So they use that term.
I sometimes expanded them to go up to 40 minutes.
All of those things in education, of course, those things are important.
Student is going to our heads and our lungs.
The affirmations in the mirror for about 2 minutes.
What did you do in order to get yourself going?
this is amazing.
Happens what seems to happen quite a bit in our school.
For the families to come, and they
is that really for the child, or is it for us, for the parents?
and doing new things for our brain.
Who's orchestrating everything in this universe?
Which parts of the brain are used?
Based on that map that we have.
See you with your smiling face.
Atul, thank you very much for allowing me to join you. Namaste to you, my friends.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Early Childhood Global Spotlight on Sundays. And with us today is Risa. Say hi, Risa.
Hi.
I'm just excited to get to be friends with Risa, as our backgrounds are so similar and our passion is also so similar. And I just love talking with you, Risa. So, you know what? I know this might be throwing you off a little bit here, but you had asked about maybe singing a hello song.
Sure.
Why don't you do that now before I give them a bio?
Sure. And thank you for having me on the show. You know, I respect you immensely and it's a pleasure. So thank you.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So we'll start with a hello song. And their emotions. Hello with one hand, hello with the other, hello with two hands. So I can't do the motions and play the guitar.
I'll do them.
All right. Awesome. Thanks. Hello with one hand, hello with the other, hello with two hands, hello with one hand, hello with the other, hello with two hands. And this is a zipper song, so I can ask the students what else we should say hello with. That's something that you have two of on your body. We can say hello with one arm. We can say hello with one foot. We can say hello with one ear, or a shoulder, or an elbow, whatever they say, a knee. But this time of year, I add something fun, and I say, I have a surprise for you. Listen closely, and you might guess what it is. Did you hear that? I do. Hello with one jingle. Hello with the other. Hello with two jingle bells. So make it your own.
That's cute. And I know that was from your magical music moment that you did this week. And if anybody wants to see more of that, it is still up on our page, our group page. Just type in Risa's name and it'll come up so you can see the whole thing. So let me tell you a little bit about this amazing woman that I now like to call my friend. Risa Cohen has been teaching music and movement to children since 1994. Me too. Well, yeah, didn't teach him before that, but right. Anyway, she holds an MS in education in early childhood and elementary ed from Bank Street College, which is a pretty cool place to go. As a classroom teacher, she taught kindergarten and first grade in the New York City schools. Her classroom served as a lab for the writing workshop. Risa studied at the Reading and Writing Project at Teachers College at Columbia. and I'm sure you all have heard of Columbia. She served on leadership grants there and taught music and literacy in the New York schools and served as the West Side Montessori for 10 years as the music and literacy co-curricular. Risa's passionate about progressive education and is the founder and creative director of Sing Into Music. She offers an integrated curriculum teaching language and literacy through music and movement. She works with babies, preschoolers, and early elementary students, as well as teens and adults with special needs. And we all know how much music helps those with special needs. Additionally, Risa performs at schools and libraries and trains teachers and library workers. And you can find out more about her at her website, singintoreading.com. And we can put that in the comments later so that you can find it easily and have a link. So Atul is saying hello.
Hi,
and Liz is saying good morning from San Francisco.
Hi, Liz.
And
Nina. Hi.
Yay.
Can I just say,
Thank you
Mayor and Atul, you have created such a wonderful community here, and I am so thankful to be a part of it. I've made so many friends here, and I owe it to you. So thank you.
Well, it wouldn't have been a community without you joining. We needed everybody to want to come along with us. So thank you. So we're going to hop right into this, and we're going to begin by discussing the relationship between reading and music and a little bit about Bank Street, where you received your training. I think a lot of people don't know what that is, and what a wonderful experience that was for you and what it teaches. So take it away, Risa. Tell us about that.
Okay, so I'll start with just the basic relationship between music and literacy. First of all, I use a more general definition of literacy involving reading in a broader sense. To me, literacy is not only reading and writing letters and words, but also reading and writing and interpreting any visual information. So reading pictures, reading maps, reading faces, reading a room. And to me, that goes right into literacy. So even little infants as they're born learn to read faces, and that's an early literacy skill because that's interpreting visual information. And oral language is a direct connection to written language. We learn to speak before we learn to read and write written language. We learn to speak and listen. So it's all about communication. So just as speaking is delivering a message, and when we're speaking, the ultimate goal is not to pronounce our words so perfectly, but to get our message across. Writing is the same thing. It's about delivering a message and communication. So the ultimate goal is not to spell everything correctly and get punctuation right, because I get typos every single day. I just saw Nina wrote Rosa, which my name always comes up as Rosa, even in my own phone.
She followed that up with an explanation and an apology there.
No apology necessary. My point is, I understood the message, and it doesn't matter. There's no, it's not, the goal is not the spelling. The goal is to deliver the message, and the message was delivered. So just as when we're speaking and we encourage children learning to speak when they say nanners, for example, my nephew Noah, who I'm going to see soon, is now in his late 20s. But when he was a little bitty babe, when he was like 2, one of his first words was nanners. And we didn't correct him and say, no, it's banana, and make him feel like a failure that he didn't say the word correctly. He said something, he delivered a message, he communicated it, we celebrated it. We said, yay, you're talking. So just like when you're learning written language, when a child's learning written language, I encourage inventive spelling when they're first starting to write, and not harp on the little errors, but celebrate the communication, which is the ultimate goal. And the relationship between speaking and written language, spoken language and written language, is heightened when that spoken language is sung, because the cadence of the melody piques the interest of the listener and invites them to listen harder. I'm sure many classroom teachers have had the experience of children not paying attention in the classroom, and as soon as you start singing, they all turn to you with wide eyes. Music gains attention. So if your goal ultimately is to deliver a message, to get the attention of the receiver of the information and deliver a message, music helps that message delivery. Also, as you know, Maren, you know more about this than me probably, but music lights up every part of the brain, including the amygdala and the parts of the brain involved in memory. So for example, if this is a hand model of the brain, it might be easier on this side. If this is a hand model of the brain, and back here is the brain stem, which is responsible for reflexes, involuntary reflexes, and back here, the back of the brain is responsible for voluntary motions of the limbs, for example, or walking, and inside, and there are many more parts of the brain, obviously, and I'm not a brain scientist. This is basic parts. Inside the brain is the amygdala. This is where your fight, flight, or freeze instincts come in. And front of the brain is the prefrontal cortex, which is where which is the part responsible for executive function and thinking and higher level thinking. And music lights up every part of the brain, including the parts responsible for memory. So when we're trying to teach something to children that we want them to learn and we want them to remember, music lights up those parts responsible for memory in a way that nothing else does. So it's a powerful tool. Just as an example, I used to volunteer with a group of people who had Alzheimer's disease when I lived in New York City. And some of them didn't know the names of their own children. But when I played Let Me Call You Sweetheart, they knew every single word.
Yeah.
Every single word. It never goes away. What else can I say about the relationship between literacy and music? It helps memory. The cadence invites the listener to pay attention. Hello, Preeti. Thank you for joining us. And it's fun. And we're more likely to do things if they're fun. So it's a wonderful, powerful tool. I think you also asked me to talk about Bank Street College.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know what it is, and I actually would like to know more about it myself. It is in New York City, and you and I were just sharing before the Spotlight became live that I'm watching that documentary about Sesame Street, and you no longer live in New York, and I no longer live up there either. But when Sesame Street was being born, they used a lot of the local colleges and a lot of the pulled upon the research to make it be the best children's, in my opinion, best children's program ever created. So Bank Street, I would think, probably uses a lot of the same research. And I'd love for you to talk about that a little.
Sure. Well, what makes Bank Street, Bank Street's known as the lab site of the developmental interaction approach, which was founded by Lucy Sprague Mitchell. It's also called the Lucy Sprague Mitchell approach or the Bank Street approach. And it is a constructivist approach to education. It's definitely a progressive strain of education. There are, if you're going to put types of teaching methods into two buckets, there is traditional education and progressive education. And in general, traditional education teaches that students need to listen to the teacher, read the text, learn from the teacher, read the text, learn what it says, and give it back.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, progressive education also puts an emphasis on learning from your peers and also learning through experience. So it's an experiential constructivist education approach. The constructivist education approach states that children construct their own knowledge. And the developmental interactive approach talks about, there's the age-old question, nature versus nurture, right?
Right.
And of course, both contribute to the development of a child. And
Yes.
what makes the Bank Street approach special is it's a whole child approach, and they talk a lot about the interaction.
If I may,
development.
I would like to make a point here that I think is important. I think that in today's climate, there are people that hear progressive education and they immediately think, oh no, that's that political left wing.
No.
And they turn off to it and they don't listen. And this is why I think what you just did was so important, because it definitely separates progressive education from progressive politics. And to know that its value is, it's something that has been used by many of the great thinkers like Rudolf Steiner. We're going to have someone on talking about him in a couple of weeks. And Reggio Emilia School, you know, Montessori to an extent, but
Montessori is a progressive strain of education for sure. And like you said, Reggio Emilia and the Waldorf schools like Rudolf Steiner, which by the way, I enjoyed going to Dornach, Switzerland and seeing the Goetheanum where Rudolf Steiner started.
Wow.
Really cool experience.
Wow, what a great experience.
Like 15 years ago.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I wanted to make that point about the differentiation between what is progressive education and that it is not progressive politics, it's progressive education.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a political stance. It's a type of education. Thank you. Thank you for making that point. And yeah, there are many strains of progressive education, not just the developmental interactive approach. That's just one strain of education. There is no school where I live in Toledo, Ohio, that follows the developmental interaction approach. So I ended up teaching for 10 years at a Montessori school, which is, like I said, another strain of progressive education, not politics.
Right, exactly.
So the Bank Street approach talks about presenting material when a child is developmentally ready for it. And that children are self-centered, they're egotistical. So you start in the center and you start with the child. And if you want to gain a child's interest, you work with them. You do things important to them. And so babies, it needs to be all about them. Sing songs about their limbs, sing songs about their faces, their fingers, about them. Then as children get older, the next, you can imagine a map of concentric circles, and I've presented on this and I have one somewhere, but I don't have it with me. But in the center is the child, the self. And then the next concentric circle is the family. So when students become preschoolers, say, you can start teaching about the family. And then the next concentric circle would be, say, the classroom, then the school, then the neighborhood, then the state, then the country, then the world. And I'm not saying don't teach your children anything about the world before they're ready for it, because of course we need to touch on all of these subjects at every age. But for your primary curriculum anchor at each age, Bank Street College teaches should be something related to that child's developmental level. So for example, at Bank Street College, the second graders always do a state study, and the kindergarteners always do a school study.
Okay, that's cool.
So the kindergarteners also might do a bread study, for example, and study bread all over the world. But,
I love that.
But the bread is something they can relate to. So it always has to be something developmentally appropriate to the child.
And that's very, very in line with Reggio. as well. Yeah, so, there's so many wonderful theories and approaches, but all of them have the same basic concepts. If we teach what the child is interested in at the child's level, they will learn. And that's how children will learn best. And so one of the things we use, nursery rhymes. Mother Goose was always so good because of the da 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 da, but some of the words could be a little archaic. We don't want somebody putting his wife in a pumpkin shell, or a woman going to the grocery store and leaving a kid. Oh, well, so, Becky Bailey changed those on the I Love You rituals. That was such a fun project to work with her on, changing the lyrics of those. But it's not just the nursery rhymes. It's a lot of the sing-songy things that we do that are easy to sing. And why are these so helpful in reading readiness?
Sure, I would love to answer that. But before I do, I want to go to this comment that Liz Hines Hannon said. She said the anchor is a good image. Liz, thank you for bringing that up, because I forgot to mention another thing that Bank Street College is known for is an integrated curriculum. And there are different kinds of integrated curriculums. So there may be a thematic curriculum, which is really not an integrated curriculum, but a multidisciplinary curriculum that's all anchored in one theme. So for example, if you're doing a bread study, you could study math. If you open a store and sell the bread, you could study reading if you write menus, and every subject can work. But the bread study really is not a multidisciplinary thematic study so much as an integrated curriculum. Yeah. So Bank Street is known for an integrated curriculum. And I wanted to make sure I said that because that's something that they pride themselves in. So now I will go and answer your question about nursery rhymes and how they help with literacy. Did I get that question right, Mayor?
Yes, but you had also said to me that to make sure that was inclusive, that it wasn't just nursery rhymes.
Yes. So one of the things that I will say that nursery rhymes do that I mentioned earlier is they follow a rhythm, a predictable rhythm. And the predictable rhythm helps children feel safe because they know what to expect and they know their expectations will be met. And the predictable rhythm helps children follow along, helps children learn rhythm, learn the beat. They also often rhyme, and rhyming is one of the most important foundational phonemic awareness skills that we can teach early literacy learners. And rhyming songs are hugely important.
Oh, yes.
To children learning to read and write. You need to hear, just as you need to listen and speak before you can read and write, unless you're mute. I understand some people can't, or are deaf, or I understand, I know that you can read and write without listening and speaking, but in a neurotypical developmental framework, it's important to hear and speak before you read and write developmentally most of the time. Obviously, yes. There's exceptions to every rule, right?
Yeah.
And same with rhyming. We wouldn't want to ask our children to write an app rhyme sort without ever hearing those rhymes and recognizing them orally.
Mm-hmm.
We need to hear it before we can read it. And we need to hear it before we can write it. And obviously, if you're deaf, there are still, or hard of hearing, my mother is deaf. I'm not saying that those children can't learn literacy. I have students who are and are literacy learners.
Right. And so you probably have heard of Dr. Alfred Tomatis, especially with your mom.
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, Alfred Tomatis is the ear, nose, and throat specialist and his name is Tomatis.
Oh, I have. I have.
Okay, he's done the research where he's the man that, and I don't want to say the word discovered, but realized that we cannot say something unless we hear it.
Yeah.
And that is why when I do the ABCs, I slow them down so that they can hear L-M-N-O-P. When kids hear L-M-N-O-P, they're not hearing all the sounds, so they're dropping letters. So in order for children to be successful at repeating after us, they need to hear all the sounds in the word. And Phyllis Weicker talks about that too. She says English is the only unmetered language, at least American English, and that makes it more difficult for children because of that. So it's really good how you go very slowly with the children, very deliberate, and love that about you.
Thank you. I will say, since you mentioned the ABCs, I like to teach the sound before the letter name. So, and this is something I learned both at the Montessori school I taught at, and also where at the Reading and Writing Project at Teachers College, where I studied balanced literacy. So my program, Sing Into Reading, it's an integrated curriculum of music and movement and literacy. And my literacy is anchored in what I learned about whole child language approach at Bank Street College, as well as what I learned about a balanced literacy approach at the Reading and Writing Project at Teachers College at Columbia. And the reason that I teach sounds before letter names is because if you are an early reader, and let's say you're approaching the word in, and you get to that I, and you have to think, that's the letter I, it goes I. That's the letter N, it goes N. Then you have to go back to the beginning and think, that's the letter I, it goes I. That's the letter N, it goes N. And go back and forth until you get the I, N in your head. And then you have I, N, and then you need to blend it into N, which is a lot of work. That is a lot of mental gymnastics. Whereas if you teach the sounds first, and I'm not saying don't teach the names. Obviously, we need to know the sounds and the names. But if you teach the sounds first, then when you approach that, what you think is, that's it. That's N.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, that took out a whole bunch of steps. Now you just need to blend it and go in. So I skip the ABC songs because it focuses on letter names and not sounds until they have the sounds first.
Okay. And how would you do that? Do you have a song?
So when I see letters, I don't refer to them as the letter names. I refer to them as the letter sounds.
Okay.
So for example, when I'm reading, you know, and it sounds funny to think, you know, to refer to this glare is tricky. Let me turn off my light. So I'll teach this sound chart, and I'll say apple, ball, and like that. But that's obviously for older students, for students who are, you know, in kindergarten and above. Mental gymnastics, another great image. And when I point out letters in books and places, I don't say, where's the A? I'll say, where's the A? I'll say, there's the B. And it sounds funny to say the V instead of the V, but it speeds up the learning process for reading and writing.
Okay, that's interesting. I'd never heard anyone talk about it that way. And I think it's interesting too. And you remember when we first met, I was like, what are you doing? Teaching reading, remember? And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I asked you questions, you know, and we went back and forth to figuring out, were we on different pages? And I love that interaction. I think that it's so important to ask those questions and not say something like, Risa, I've never heard of that before. That's crazy. You know, like you don't grow, you become stagnant, and then that causes bench. So it's important to explore ideas that are different and try them and learn from each other. So Liz is saying something again.
Sounds are done first in all of my Montessori preschools. Yes, it makes it easy for the children. Yes.
There you go.
Sounds first, then letterings.
Validation from Liz.
Yes, I remember, Mayor, when I first met you and you were saying, Risa, I hope you don't teach young children, preschoolers, to read and write. They're not ready. And I said, don't worry, we just sing and dance. I consider that reading and writing because they're interpreting visual information. I have a much broader approach to literacy and reading and writing.
Yes.
And I find it discouraging to say to a child, you're not reading yet, you're not writing yet. I find it more encouraging to say to a child, great reading or great writing when they're interpreting visual information.
Right. And that's wonderful. Okay, so
nursery rhymes. I got a little off target. Sorry.
We both did.
There's so much to talk about.
It's Liz's fault. We have comments. But the melody of going up and down with singing, we do know that the ability to follow a melody is related to phonemic awareness. So that's part of the beauty of it. And they remember better. So,
yes, and also many nursery rhymes are paired with movements, either fine motor movements or gross motor movements. And movement obviously is also important for literacy development. Fine motor movements are really important to learn to hold a pencil and learn a pincer grip so that you can write. And also these gross motor movements like crossing the midline and using unilateral, bilateral, and cross-lateral motions is important for learning literacy. Writing is a bilateral motion. We need that helping hand. So you need to learn bilateral integration before you can write. Also, these gross motor movements help with developing shoulder girdle stability, which is necessary for writing. So all of the motions that go with the nursery rhymes help as well.
And that was the next question. So covered.
Sorry.
And, no, that's great. Deidre talks about that a lot with her writability and all that work. And I love that too, how she turns all of that into, how you learn to write. I have a song called Writing and Drawing in the Air. And I tell the teachers, you can't expect them to take a writing utensil and put it on a piece of paper if they can't do this.
Yes.
And this comes first.
Yes.
For sure. So it's really important to take all these little pieces. And I know that you do this in your weekly programs with the parents. So take us through some of Music Time with Risa. What do you do with the different age groups and the parents? Because as someone that, I design and teach music with Mare, I think 90% of the class is for the parents. And I know that you're teaching the parents too, and hoping that when they get home, they're still going to use the things that you've taught them in class.
So before I touch on that, I just want to mention you talking about the air writing and how important that is. And that's wonderful that you do that. At one school I taught at PS 28 in New York City, they used reading recovery for their literacy program, which is not one I tend to use a lot of things from, but one of the things I learned from reading recovery was the skywriting. And we still do that. And for example, when we learn words on the word wall, we still do skywriting. And it's great work and it's super important. So
and I would like to add one more thing to that unfortunately, and again, like Ben Franklin says, all generalities are false, including this one. So generally, boys have a harder time with the writing. And one of the reasons is they develop more gross motor skills and girls develop fine motors first, generally. And so if we don't make writing something that is gross motor, the boys are going to lag behind. So it is not, there are some definite gender differences that need to be addressed, whether we want to think of like equality and equity. Yes, to a degree where it makes sense, but there are some definite differences between the genders that we do need to respect, and doing this kind of gross motor before fine motor is going to help all of those children that develop gross motor first. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so you asked me to take you through one of my classes. I offer Gender Matters is a great book. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, and the other one is Boys and Girls Learn Differently. That is fantastic. It has a lot of brain research tidbits in it.
I'm going to have to add them to my list.
Boys and Girls Learn Differently. The guy is, oh gosh, I can't remember his name right now. But in Kansas City, he took the school system and had them separate the boys and girls so that they can see if they learn differently when they weren't worried about what the other would think. And the research showed was unbelievable. And I interviewed them when I did the BAM radio interviews with Ray Pica. And it was phenomenal what they are doing in that school so far as gender. But go ahead. This is what's so,
we all, there's so many exciting things to talk about and learn about. So it's hard to stay on topic.
We're in a class with you right now. Liz has just come in with her granddaughter. So what's
awesome.
going to happen?
Okay, so what happens, it depends on the class, because I do often speak at schools and libraries and functions, and I'll offer trainings for teachers, and I'll offer trainings for parents, and obviously those differ. I also have private classes, which are usually an hour long, a half hour with the kids and a half hour with the parents, and those are individualized and personalized to exactly where that child is. But I think you're asking about my group class.
Yes.
My membership. And in that class, the way it works is we weekly, Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern, we meet, and I spend the first 5 minutes saying hello and giving kids a chance to share whatever they need to share, because I always like to empower the children to know they have a strong voice in the classroom. I don't want it to be all about listen to me, look at me, because it's really all about them. Mm-hmm. So I start with them. I start with, hello, what's new with you? Do you have anything you want to share? And if they want to share the work that they did last week, that was the assignment, and talk about it, that's a great thing to do. So we spend 5 minutes on that. Then we spend 30 minutes doing music and movement. And my music and movement class, we do a lot of original songs, and we do a lot of traditional songs, and even some contemporary artists get thrown in there. My music and movement classes tend to follow an arc, so that we'll start out with a gentle hello song and finger plays, seated work. And then we'll get up on our feet and we'll start singing and dancing and doing those gross motor movements and having a blast, having a party. And then we come back down and end with gentle Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and Skidamarink. And then after that, I gave the children another chance to share. And then after that, some of them will leave. Some of the younger children leave after that and check the recording after for the assignment, because that's enough time for them. Some of the older students, and this is a mixed age classroom for students under 8. And, some of them are 2, and so those students leave right after music and movement. And I make modifications as I go for students who are not walking. I'll offer it as a lap game, things like that.
That's good.
And then after that, I offer a literacy assignment for the week that relates to the songs that we sang. So the songs and the literacy assignment will follow some kind of theme. And they're related. And the literacy assignment is always something fun. I mean, here's one from a recent week. Let me get this for you. I gave them a recipe for puffy paint, and I read the recipe to them. I gave them a chance to read and this would be a recording, so they would do it on their own sometime throughout the week. I read the recipe to them. I gave them a chance to read the recipe, and we followed the directions to mix all those things in a mixing bowl and make the puffy paint. And then we use the puffy paint to create something. So some of the students might use the puffy paint in this way. Fantastic. Some of the students might use the puffy paint in this way. And all work is celebrated. That glare, it's hard to see anything. But all work at all levels is celebrated as writing. So I would then the next week ask, did you do your puffy paint writing? Can we see your writing? Do you want to talk about your writing? So I would call this writing. It's expressing something visual on paper. I understand that this doesn't look like writing, and this certainly doesn't look like writing to a lot of people. I would rather approach a child from a place of where they're at and encourage them to get to the next level than approach them from a place of you're not doing it yet. You don't even have a key to the door. Because to me, that's discouraging. For me, I feel like, look, literacy is not a benchmark that you hit and you're done. It's not like rolling over at 4 months. Okay, it's like a switch. Like either you're not rolling over or you are. Right. Literacy is not like you're not reading and writing or you are. It's not a switch. It's more of a continuum. It's more of a spectrum. And wherever you are on the spectrum, you want to get to the next level. And you're never, ever done. Like maybe some of my students are here, so I can help them get here. Maybe some of my students are here and I can help them get here. But to me, they are all on the literacy journey. They are all readers and writers in different places in their journey. And maybe I'm here and I want to get here. And I'm not there yet. I'm still learning too.
Right. That's very beautiful. And I love what you say about that. That is the beginning of writing because it's a symbol on a piece of paper. And unless you can put any kind of symbols on paper and feel confident, then you're not going to be able to then write. So this is a really good perspective for people to look at it from, instead of thinking that writing is just forming letters. It's not. The beginning of writing is not. So you take it back a couple of steps further than most people do. And I think that people ought to start looking at that it goes back a little bit further. And, you know, as I said, Deirdre does that too, Deidre, and maybe more people in this group. And that's part of the thing that I love about this is that you say something and then somebody in the UK says, yes, I do that too. And we get more people seeing the value and the word spreads larger and larger. So kudos to you for having such a wonderful voice.
Thank you. I didn't finish talking about my weekly classes though. So okay. I just want to take a second to finish that part. So that would be the Monday afternoon class. And then I also meet with parents for the parent group, Teach Your Child to Read with Music and Love. And that's separate after the kids are asleep. There's also an online portal with all the recordings and a song library and parent resources that parents can do on their own time. So that's the class. I don't talk to the parents too much during the time when the kids are there, except for in my private classes.
Right.
Because the kids need to be all about the kids.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I always say in my classes too. Parents, I wish I can tell you more right now, but I have stuff up for you on YouTube, you know, because when that little aha light bulb goes off for the parent, then they are going to make sure they keep doing that at home. And I love when that happens. When I do a stick song where in the beginning they're holding their sticks and the music, I tell them, move the sticks to the music. And the parents just think, oh, we're just doing this silly, keeping the beat. But then I'll say to the parents, okay, now keep your head still and just follow the sticks with your eyes. Can you do that? Of course, the little kids can't do that. The whole head's going. But I'll say, in a way that we don't lose the children's attention, I'll say, this is what your eyes have to do to follow words in a book. We're practicing reading. And every once in a while, the parent will go, wow. And inside you're like, yes, they made that connection. And to me, that's part of the beauty of what we do, is that making the connections for the parents that will help the children, And so like we're getting near the end of our time. So first thing I'd like to do is say, if anyone's watching and they have any questions for Risa, now would be the time to post them, because she's going to be going away soon. And Risa, what I'd like to say to you is, what do you want to say to all of those listening to encourage them to use music and movement as a way of singing to reading?
So I would say, first of all, I wrote a free guide called 10 Tips to Teach Your Child to Read with Music and Love. And I can offer it to any of you. If you go to my website, singintoreading.com, there's a button there to get it. I would say that, we talk about a whole child approach. We can't learn anything in a compartmentalized way. One of the most important things I learned at Bank Street is about the integrated curriculum and the whole child approach. So if you want, thank you for putting that up. There's spaces somehow, but yeah, all one word, singintoreading.com.
I did not do that.
I know.
Autocorrect, put in the spaces.
I know.
I'm going to fix that.
I know. So sing with your child every single day. Move with your child every single day. And when you're singing with your child, make sure you're singing rhyming games. When you're moving with your child, make sure, that's okay. I'll put it in later, Mare. Don't worry about it. I'll put it in after. I know, silly autocorrect. When you're moving with your child, do gross motor movements and also, do gross motor movements and also fine motor movements every day. And do it with love. Do it with love. Do all things with love. It has to come from an encouraging approach. If you're trying to teach your child to read and write, and you're trying to sit down with them every day and teach the letters and learn the letters and make it a test, then you're going to only instill fear.
Right.
Fear of failure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the last thing we want. In that case, your child is working from a place of fight, flight, or freeze. It makes it feel like an emergency. Mm-hmm. This is not an emergency.
No.
This is just part of life.
This is an emergency.
Yes. Do it with love. And please read to your child every single day.
What a perfect way to end that. Yes. And read and sing.
Yes.
Every single day.
Keep singing. That's what I always say. I sign every letter with keep singing.
Yes. So thank you so much. I really loved having you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Mare. And thank you, Mare and Atul, for this wonderful group.